Today we're diving into something a bit more spicy. Ever noticed how Western media often paints Africa with the same broad brush? Yeah, we're talking stereotypes, misconceptions, and that delightful knack for oversimplifying an entire continent's rich features into a few tired clichés. Imagine watching a movie where Africa is either a war-torn wasteland or an endless safari playground. Convenient, right? But hold on, why should anyone care? Well, unless you enjoy living in a world fueled by ignorance and half-truths, maybe it's time we unpack this mess. So, grab your popcorn, or better yet, your critical thinking cap, because we're about to dissect how Western media has shaped, warped, and sometimes downright butchered the portrayal of Africa. Spoiler alert! It's not always as accurate as that Instagram post your cousin shared. Let's rewind to the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the golden age of colonialism and, believe it or not, the birth of many of the stereotypes we see today. European powers, in their infinite wisdom, decided that Africa needed to be civilized, which, if you ask me, sounds like a euphemism for, let's mess this place up so we can rule it better. During the scramble for Africa, colonizers didn't just grab land, they grabbed narratives. Africa was portrayed as a dark, mysterious continent needing Western intervention to bring light and progress. It's like showing up to a barbecue and telling everyone you're there to teach them how to grill. Awkward. These early depictions were heavily influenced by racist ideologies and a complete lack of understanding, or shall we say, a deliberate ignorance of African cultures, societies, and histories. The legacy? A set of deeply ingrained stereotypes that persist to this day. Thanks in no small part to the media. First up on our hit list, poverty and underdevelopment. Western media loves to highlight Africa's struggles, poverty, disease, famine, while conveniently ignoring the continent's immense diversity and economic progress. It's like watching a reality show where the only story is the one involving stolen goods and survival. Sure, parts of Africa face significant challenges, but to reduce an entire continent to misery is not just inaccurate, it's downright insulting. Countries like South Africa, Nigeria, and Kenya are economic powerhouses in their own right. Yet the media prefers the bleak narrative because, well, it's easier to stick to a bad script than to change the story. This one-dimensional portrayal does a disservice not only to Africans but to the global understanding of economic development. It perpetuates a cycle where investment and aid are misguidedly funneled into places simply because they're labeled needy, rather than based on nuanced, on-the-ground realities. Next on our agenda, conflict and violence. Africa is often depicted as a continent at war, with endless civil conflicts, terrorism, and chaos. Yes, conflicts exist, but so do peace-building efforts, thriving communities, and innovative solutions to complex problems. It's like watching every action movie ever and assuming the world is just one big battlefield. Take Rwanda, for instance. The genocide in 1994 is a tragic part of history, but Rwanda today is a model of economic growth and stability, something the media rarely highlights. Or look at Liberia, a country that has made significant strides since its civil wars. But nope, the headlines are stuck on violence, ignoring the progress being made. This focus on conflict not only distorts the global perception of Africa, but also undermines the resilience and agency of African people who are actively working towards peace and development. It's like telling someone who's going through a rough patch that their entire life is ruined, ignoring all the efforts they're making to turn things around. And who could forget the iconic wildlife and safari imagery? Africa is frequently showcased as this vast wilderness teeming with lions, elephants, and giraffes. Great for National Geographic, terrible for nuanced understanding. It's the Wild West, but with more spots and longer necks. While Africa's wildlife is undoubtedly a treasure, reducing the continent to just its animals strips away the rich human stories, cultures, and advancements happening alongside the savannas. It's like selling a book for its cover image while ignoring the plot entirely. This stereotype also fuels misconceptions about land use, conservation efforts, and the balance between human development and wildlife preservation. Africa's urban centers are hubs of innovation, technology, and culture, details that often get lost in the wilderness backdrop. Moving on to exoticism and otherness. Africa is often portrayed as the exotic other, a place that's fundamentally different and mysterious compared to the West. This isn't just a harmless misconception, it perpetuates a sense of separateness and inferiority. Think of it as the media's way of saying, Africa is cool, but not like us. It creates an illusion of disparity and reinforces outdated colonial attitudes. This exotic lens not only distorts reality, but also affects how Africans view themselves and their place in the world. By highlighting the otherness, the media undermines the commonalities and interconnectedness of global societies. It's like insisting that one side of the world is a different species, pointless and purely divisive. So, what's the big deal with all these stereotypes? Well, picture Africa as a movie and the Western media as the scriptwriters who decided that the entire plot revolves around poverty, conflict, and exotic animals. Not exactly a blockbuster hit, right? This skewed image shapes global perceptions, influencing everything from tourism to international policy. When the world sees Africa through this narrow lens, it misses out on the vibrant cultures, innovative technologies, and thriving economies that make the continent so unique. It's like judging a restaurant based solely on the dessert menu, ignoring the main courses that could blow your mind. Moving to policy and aid, these stereotypes have real-world consequences. The depiction of Africa as perpetually in need justifies continuous foreign aid and intervention, often without addressing the root causes of problems. It's a bit like putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg and expecting it to heal. Moreover, aid programs based on these misconceptions can sometimes exacerbate dependency rather than fostering sustainable development. Instead of empowering local communities and building self-sufficiency, these initiatives can inadvertently maintain the status quo of dependency. It's like trying to teach someone to ride a bike by always holding onto the seat. They might not learn to balance on their own. Lastly, let's talk about African self-perception. Constantly seeing negative stereotypes can affect how Africans view themselves. It can breed feelings of inferiority and hinder the self-confidence needed to tackle challenges and innovate. Imagine being told every time you enter a room that you're just there to serve dessert. It's demoralizing. But it's not all doom and gloom. Many African voices are pushing back against these stereotypes, using media and technology to tell their own stories. It's like the plot twist you didn't see coming in a predictable movie, exciting and much needed. Thankfully, there's a growing movement within Africa to take control of its own narrative. African filmmakers, journalists, and content creators are working tirelessly to showcase the continent's true diversity and complexity. Think of it as Africans finally deciding to write their own movie script rather than letting others do it for them. Films like Tsotsi, City of God, and Beasts of No Nation have garnered international acclaim, portraying African stories with depth and authenticity. African documentaries and news outlets are also providing a platform for voices that were previously marginalized or misrepresented. To ensure a balanced perspective, let's consider some counter-arguments and different viewpoints on the issue of media representation. Some argue that Western media is simply reflecting reality. They point out that conflict, poverty, and wildlife are indeed significant aspects of life in various African regions. Why not just show it as it is, they ask. But here's the catch: context matters. Focusing solely on these elements without highlighting successes and diversity creates a skewed perception. On the flip side, some believe that Africa needs to take more responsibility for its representation. They argue that African media should produce more content that showcases the continent's achievements, cultures, and innovations. Self-representation is key, they say. While this is true, it doesn't absolve Western media from perpetuating outdated stereotypes. It's a shared responsibility to ensure accurate and diverse portrayals. Another perspective centers on globalization. With the rise of social media and digital platforms, Africans have more tools than ever to shape their own narratives. Why let traditional Western media control the story? Proponents argue. While digital media provides new avenues for representation, traditional media still holds significant influence over global perceptions, especially for audiences with limited access to diverse sources of information. Lastly, some suggest that economic interests drive media portrayals. Media outlets focus on conflict and poverty because they attract more viewers and generate higher ad revenues. It's all about the bottom line, they claim. This cynical view highlights the commercial motivations behind media content, reminding us that profitability often trumps authenticity. By considering these multiple viewpoints, we can better understand the complexity surrounding media representation and work towards more nuanced and accurate portrayals of Africa. Technology and social media have revolutionized how stories are told and consumed. Gone are the days when a handful of Western media giants dictated the narrative. Today, Africans are harnessing digital platforms to share their own stories, challenge stereotypes, and connect with global audiences on their own terms. Social media has become a powerful tool for activism and representation. Platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube allow Africans to bypass traditional gatekeepers and directly engage with the world. Hashtags like #BlackExcellence and #AfricanVoices are amplifying positive stories of innovation, resilience, and cultural pride. Content creators across Africa are producing high-quality films, documentaries, and web series that showcase the continent's diversity. Channels like Nollywood are gaining international acclaim, while independent filmmakers use crowdfunding platforms to bring their authentic stories to life. These creators are not just breaking stereotypes, they're redefining them. However, it's not all smooth sailing. Digital divides still exist, limiting access to technology in some regions. Additionally, African content creators face challenges like censorship, funding shortages, and the struggle to reach global audiences. But the opportunities are immense. Collaborations, cross-cultural exchanges, and the ability to create content that resonates both locally and globally. Ultimately, technology is democratizing storytelling, giving Africans the tools to shape their own narratives and challenge the status quo. It's like handing the mic to the people and saying, "Your story matters, now go tell it." Changing the narrative isn't just about producing better content. It's also about educating the audience to recognize and reject stereotypes. Media literacy initiatives are crucial in this regard, empowering viewers to critically analyze the media they consume and seek out diverse perspectives. Schools, universities, and community organizations across Africa and the West are implementing media literacy programs. These initiatives teach individuals how to identify biases, understand the construction of narratives, and appreciate the importance of diverse representations. It's like giving them a pair of glasses that let them see through the smokescreen of stereotypes. Academic research plays a vital role in dissecting media representations and advocating for change. Scholars analyze how historical contexts, political agendas, and economic interests shape media portrayals. Their findings inform policy recommendations, media practices, and educational curricula, fostering a more informed and critical public. Moreover, empowering African voices within educational institutions is essential. Encouraging African scholars, journalists, and content creators to take leadership roles in media and academia ensures that authentic perspectives are integrated into mainstream narratives. It's like diversifying the authors of history books to include the actual protagonists. By enhancing media literacy and supporting academic research, we can create a more discerning audience that demands accurate and respectful portrayals of Africa. After all, an informed viewer is the best antidote to ignorance. So, what does the future hold for the representation of Africa in Western media? There's both reason for optimism and plenty of work to be done. Increasing collaboration between African and Western media can lead to more balanced and nuanced portrayals. Co-productions, cultural exchanges, and joint storytelling initiatives can bridge gaps and foster mutual understanding. It's like two artists collaborating to create a masterpiece that neither could achieve alone. Policy changes and industry standards are also crucial. Advocating for diversity in media production, promoting inclusive hiring practices, and supporting fair representation can drive systemic change. When the industry prioritizes authenticity and diversity, everyone benefits. It's a win-win scenario. Grassroots movements and advocacy groups continue to push for change, holding media accountable and championing positive representation. These movements ensure that the voices of the marginalized are heard and respected, acting as watchdogs against harmful stereotypes. Technological advancements like virtual reality and immersive storytelling offer new ways to experience and understand African narratives. These tools can create empathy and connection, allowing audiences to engage with stories in a more profound and personal way. Lastly, global solidarity and allyship are essential. Support from international communities, including policymakers, educators, and media professionals, can amplify African voices and ensure that authentic stories reach a wider audience. It's like the ultimate group project, where everyone brings their strengths to the table to create something extraordinary. In conclusion, while Western media's representation of Africa has been riddled with stereotypes and misconceptions, there's a growing movement towards more accurate and respectful portrayals. Through collaboration, policy changes, grassroots advocacy, technological innovations, and global solidarity, we can hope for a future where Africa's stories are told with the depth, diversity, and dignity they deserve. While this journey through stereotypes and misconceptions hasn't been a walk in the savannah, It's crucial for understanding how media shapes our perceptions. Africa is not a monolith, but a continent teeming with diversity, innovation, and resilience. So, next time you hear a headline or watch a documentary about Africa, ask yourself, is this the full story, or just another chapter in a long history of misrepresentation? If you enjoyed this deep dive into Western media's portrayal of Africa, make sure to hit that like button, share it with friends, and subscribe for more insightful explorations. Let's keep these important conversations going and work towards a world where every story is told with integrity and respect. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more untold histories from Africa's past.